Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. How you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing good today, Paul. How you doing today, brother?
Dude, I can't lie. I'm tired. I can't lie. Like, not just because this is the earliest podcast we've ever done, and I know it's not that early. It's 8 o'clock, but more because I don't think you know this because this happened while you were at the Open since the last time we recorded. I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea a couple weeks ago, and had to get the mask that goes over my face when I sleep. And I've been trying that out the last few nights. There's two different types of full face that covers your nose and your mouth, and then one that just covers your nose. And I used the full face for 2 nights, decided I hated it because I couldn't exhale enough. So I tried the nose one last night, and it's just such an adjustment.
Absolutely.
It forces air up through your system while you're trying to exhale. So you're exhaling, but air's still coming in. It's the strangest feeling ever. And then trying to sleep on top of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to take a little bit. I've been going through the last few days a little bit tired. But the good news is I can see all the data on the app, and the sleep apnea episodes have gone down very significantly. I was having 43 episodes per hour before the mask when I got my test, and 30 is considered severe, just for perspective. And last night, for some reason, it only recorded 4 hours of data, which is odd. I think it's because when I sleep on my side, it pushes the mask off. But I was only having 5 point something episodes per hour last night, which is an insane improvement compared to what it was before. So hopefully it changes my quality of life, and it is going to be annoying to have to bring it to college, but I'm keeping it in a basket so nobody knows. But yeah, I've been trying to adjust to that and packing up for school. I'm leaving on Thursday, moving in at 2:00. Halfway done with my list of packing stuff right now, but still got a lot of stuff to wash, and it's going to be a lot of last minute stuff. So, but enough of my boringness. You've been at the U.S. Open for 2 weeks, which is a lot more exciting.
Absolutely. Well, I wouldn't say more exciting. It's about the same, right? That's an awesome improvement, big change of life. So fantastic that you're getting on that, and fantastic that it's positively impacting you so far, even though it's kind of like a negative.
Yes and no.
Positive in some way.
Man, the first night that I did it, I didn't know how to wear the mask correctly.
Okay.
So the full face one, you're supposed to put it under your nose. I put it over my nose, and I was basically waterboarding myself with air. I woke up. I went to bed at 11. I woke up at 1 and felt like I was having a damn heart attack. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So I took the mask off, waited an hour, looked at the directions because I wanted to make sure it would go away. My airway was inflamed. My chest was kind of tight. I was like, okay, this is not good. I'm just going to chill for a minute. And then I looked at the direction. I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. I just put it on wrong. So
that's quite funny.
Sorry, I totally
no, you're good. I love the story. But no, the U.S. Open has been really cool. Been super interesting just to be able to observe and see the player camps, how they interact with their coaches, what they eat, what their environment is, what their mentality is. Someone I've really enjoyed observing is Novak Djokovic. And obviously I can't tell you all what he does, but man, day one when I see him, when the U.S. Open is not running and it's not preparing for games, very chummy, very smile on his face, laughs, enjoys the environment, communicates with people. And since then, it has been in the zone. I don't see him smile. I see him straight face. I don't see him talk. And the only people he talks to is his coaching staff. And his coaching staff is running around like maniacs trying to figure out and make sure everything is in the right place at the right time for Novak's process, which is absolutely amazing to observe.
Are they very specific? Is it a very specific athlete process? I would imagine.
From what I've seen, it seems so, but I haven't gotten to observe in full. I just know they're on top of it, like
Right.
what he eats and the detail oriented stuff. He has a really big team of coaches and nutritionists and physios, etc.
Right.
Probably, honestly, the biggest team of any athlete at the Open at the moment, which has been super, 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 super cool to observe.
That's cool. Have you learned anything from any of the coaches, like in watching them, that you could take into your coaching?
Hard to say. Tennis coaching and soccer coaching is a totally different
Right.
environment, but definitely like how they uphold themselves, how they act, their
Yeah,
environment.
that's more
They're
what I
they're
meant.
more one on one with the athlete, so
Right.
it's definitely different. But also, I'm not observing their training sessions and stuff like that
True.
because of where I'm placed at the moment. But it has been super cool to meet these people and interact. I've had a lot of really cool interactions with the coach of Tsitsipas, the really really big name Greek tennis player, and a couple others. But it's been super interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool and a very unique opportunity for sure. So you're there for another 2 weeks, right?
Another week and a half or so.
Week and a
I
half. Yeah.
finish up the September 7th, and time's flying by. So
Yeah.
next
Now,
thing you know, the U.S. Open will be over.
how many players are in the whole tournament?
Ooh, good question. I don't know. Um, let's just say we have roughly 300 over 300 lockers, roughly
Okay.
400. So we have like 380,
Right.
and we probably have a good like 90% of those filled. So we
Wow.
probably have
Okay.
250 to 300, 400 people uh,
Right.
in the space we're managing, and then the number of players. Let's just see, little Google number of players in main
Well, it's got to
draw.
be somewhere around 200 then. I mean, I would imagine that it takes a long time to whittle
Um,
down from 200 to, one champion.
well, there are 32 seeded players in the singles draw, and no buys are given. I don't
Okay.
think that. I think there's 64.
Okay.
I think there's 64 in the main draw, but we also had
Okay.
qualifiers last week. So we've had people in and out.
Right. Still, even to get down from that number to just one champion
It
is
definitely it
takes a
definitely
while.
starts probably at like 100 or over 100. It gets
Yeah.
down to the 64 and then goes from there,
Right. That makes sense.
which is super super cool to witness. Lots
Yeah.
and lots of tennis, lots and lots of tennis.
Definitely a crazy thing to be a part of, and something that you'll probably be able to remember for the rest of your life.
Absolutely,
That's not
absolutely.
something that most people get to do.
Shout out because I wanted to shout out something that was really cool yesterday. There's a teenage Polish tennis player, and his name is Max Kasnikowski. I hope I
Spell
said
that for me real quick.
Kasnikowski.
No. Spell it.
Kasnikawski.
All right, that took like 10 seconds for my brain to process, but okay.
But
I didn't actually think you were going to be able to spell it. That's why.
well, I hope I spelt it right. I quite like the kid, and I say kid because he's a teenager still.
Right.
But he made his first main draw of the U.S. Open this year, and he went into his match. And obviously, I'm rooting for him because he's blonde and looks a bit like me and makes me smile. And I like to see him around the energy. He has a good energy around the locker room. He has good energy, but his match went for 4.5 hours long.
Oh my god, dude. That's
So in men's
insane.
tennis, they play for 3 sets, and they played every possible set in this match. So they went set one, he won. Set two, set three, his opponent won. Set four, he won. And they went to a super tiebreaker in match five, which means they split 6-6 for games,
Oh my god.
and then had to do a
dude.
tiebreaker to 10 to decide who would win the match.
That's crazy. I
So
couldn't
it was
imagine.
absolutely nuts.
I couldn't imagine playing tennis for 4.5 hours.
Dude, crazy. Now they do take a lot of breaks. When you're watching it, you'll figure it out. But
Right.
oh my days, nuts.
Yeah, that
But
definitely can create for some long days for the staff, I'm sure.
yes, there's your watch this space.
Yeah.
Max Kasnikowski.
Okay. So what kind of hours have you been working?
I have been so yesterday I worked 12 to 8, but I'm really there
Okay.
from like 11:30 to 8:30. I get there early, not early, but you end up staying over because you're working on a project or something. Like last night, I was there an extra 30 minutes because I was helping around with stuff.
Right.
And then it takes me like 45 minutes to an hour to get home. So I didn't get home because of trains till 9:45 last night, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, you know, and that's working in sports. You're working at night a lot.
yes.
Something both
Even
of us
something
have
like the U.S.
definitely.
Open when they're massively staffed.
Yeah. How many people are working on the staff?
Just for the space that I'm working in, we have probably 15 to 20 guys.
Okay.
So
Right.
it's well staffed.
Right.
And then it's different for others, different spaces, but
Yeah, I'm
it's
sure.
definitely a high intensity environment, just like working in sports any other time. Uh,
Right.
but one of the premium events in the U.S. calendar, it is
Yeah,
for
right. And that's really cool and something that, you know, is obviously close to home for you right now, which is, you know, you may not get that necessarily very often. So that's pretty cool. So YouTube TV is updating its NFL Sunday ticket offerings because they're the provider. New features include the ability to build a custom multi-view panel, which, you know, a lot of places have that. You know, I think they're kind of basing their model off of ESPN, which is, you know, it's good because you can pick the games that you want to watch. But I think the one of the coolest things about this is that YouTube TV viewers will be able to toggle between stats, scores, and highlights from other games in a side by side window panel for live action. So basically, what this means is not only will you be able to have one game, you know, on the main screen, but you can also have this little side panel with scores for like each game throughout the league,
mm,
and also some stats and, you know, like some stuff like that. So this matters a lot because of the relationship of football right now to fantasy sports and to sports betting. And I think a lot of people will love the convenience of being able to, instead of having to watch one game and then look at their phone to see the rest of the scores and see how their players are doing, the players that they've taken in their fantasy drafts, that is, they'll be able to just see it on the side of their screen. What do you think about this feature from a convenience perspective?
absolutely innovative, right? And not innovative necessarily because it's an idea that's been done before. The multi view is super important, but in terms of convenience for the fan, for the athlete, it's fantastic. Super interesting because I think it goes to show what the Sunday ticket is like. It has to maintain a flat price because there's been debates on it being too expensive,
Yeah,
from what
right.
I've heard, and issues in terms of what YouTube is charging for it and court cases and stuff like that I've seen. But specifically looking at it, like, well, because you're offering this, you have to buy every game,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Now that's what the Sunday ticket is marketing and what they're trying to sell on. So they couldn't be able to say you're buying a set of games for a certain team. Maybe they can make a different package for that, but at the same time,
That would be smart to offer like a full season package of your specific team.
absolutely. But this feature wouldn't be able to fit into that simply based on
Yeah, probably not.
that type of things. Interesting application. Definitely excellent for convenience. Excellent for the fan. Excellent for the fantasy football enjoyer, and somebody who maybe just wants to watch a lot of football. And you can't watch every game at once. As we were saying this morning, you can't be in more than one place at once. You can't watch more than one thing at once. Time is
Right.
a commodity. And YouTube here is going and saying, well, we're going to make better use of your time. And that is definitely a good pitch.
I love that phrase, better use of your time, for sure. I just want to go back to one thing you said about it being expensive. So I actually meant to mention this. I saw a tweet from a reporter a few days ago that listed all of the services that NFL games are going to be on,
Mm.
including, you know, cable, YouTube, Amazon, Peacock, and there was at least one more or two more. And the total amount that you would have to pay to watch every single NFL game this season is $1,300 to be an NFL fan for the season. Kind of crazy that we've gotten to a point where you're paying over $1,000 just to watch games, you know? And we've talked about streaming services and how it's related to broadcasting on here many times. But I think when you see a number like that, you really start to realize, okay, this is where the industry is going forward. It's in streaming services. But will consumers be able to accept that? I don't know, because of the price of it. Like I just said, there's a lot of people who probably can't afford to spend that $1,300 on an NFL season. Like you got to have your essentials in life, your food, your housing, all your utilities, all that stuff. You're going to have to make a decision as a fan. Am I willing to spend $1,300 on this for the year or not? And I think a lot of people will say, no, I'm not doing that. Like they're not gonna get me to do this just because I don't have another option, you know. But I don't think necessarily that the NFL is doing this in a way to screw consumers over. But I think they're doing it as a way to show it to more consumers on multiple different platforms, as well as create some more revenue in terms of media deals. But that is definitely kind of an offshoot or a side effect that happens from having it on so many different platforms.
Absolutely, and I think it's an excellent point. Going back to the streaming service, and realistically, yes, it is the way our industry is going. It is the way that viewership is going for millions of different commodities, whether it be TV channels, demand, etc. Right? The what was the what's the box that we had as kids where we would go and record shows?
What are you talking about?
Like, okay, so I'm a kid, right? And I'm watching TV on cable, and I want to watch this on demand, so I want to save it for later.
You're just talking about oh, okay.
What's the name of the box?
No, I know what you're talking about. Okay, you hit on demand, and then isn't it just like record for later?
Is it the cable box? I just don't remember what I called the box as a kid.
I don't remember. I thought you were talking about it first. I thought you were talking about that old streaming service like Redbox where you
No. Oh,
no,
but people know what we mean. The on-demand option for your cable show. It's not like that anymore, right?
No, not at all.
That is what effectively streaming has gone from. I don't know why I brought it up. Just thought it was an interesting bit.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about because I used to record the home run derbies and then go back and watch them later because I was a big fan of that when I was a little kid. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the reality is what the NFL is losing here. And let's talk negatives, right? We all know I'm an optimist, but let's talk negatives first, then we can go to positives, right? The NFL is losing the entry point viewer to football in the American countries.
Absolutely.
In both in America and outside of America, right? So the NFL currently is trying to grow its brand, trying to network and reach out to different countries. They're going and they're putting games in Germany. They're putting games in Brazil. They're putting games in Mexico, etc. Right?
That Brazil game is going to be super interesting to see this year.
Absolutely, because they want to grow their brand. They want to become international. Right now, they are a internationally known brand, but are only capable of really making revenue nationally. They make right. They don't make a lot of revenue internationally. When you think about their sporting company,
at least comparatively.
Yes, comparatively to something like the Premier League. The Premier League makes so much money off of the U.S. market, off of these other markets, right? Now, thinking of it, realistically, the NFL is losing that entry-level viewer. They are hurting their opportunity to grow their brand by having it placed in so many different places, having each place be so expensive that realistically, someone who is living in Brazil is not going to say, I'm going to shift a part of my income to be able to view the NFL.
That's a great
unless
point.
I'm a super fan.
That's a great point, especially for international viewers,
Correct.
where like the U.S., as much as we complain about the economy, has one of the more wealthy economies of the world, and if you're trying to create international fans, Brazil's a great example. A country where poverty is pretty widespread, from at least from what I've heard about. Well, at least parts of it. But countries that maybe can't afford in U.S. dollars the amount that is being, because the currencies don't reflect each other in every country. So, somebody in Brazil may not be able to afford the amount of U.S. dollars that it costs to have all these streaming services. but they may be able to afford it in, Brazil, whatever the Brazil currency is. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant on that, but that's a really good point that they could be losing their entry point international fans, as well as, the fact that it's so spread out is tough. Like, I think if they had it in 2 to 3 places, that's a little more understandable. But once you start getting to 5, 6, and beyond streaming services, then it's like, okay, I'm paying, $15 a month for this and $20 a month for that, and it's like, man, that adds up fast,
It does.
for the average person, for sure. So I agree with you there that they're losing their entry point viewer, which is funny because this is not even, this is an offshoot of what this segment was actually supposed to be about. To get back to the new aspects of the YouTube TV viewing experience, aside from the side by side window, they're also adding, and I mentioned it earlier, Fantasy View. So Fantasy View is NFL Fantasy and Yahoo Fantasy users will be able to link their teams to their YouTube TV account, enabling the service to offer key plays or multi-view options personalized to each viewer's fantasy football roster. So basically, it'll tell you who to start that day and who you need to sub out and how all your players are doing at the same time, and if someone gets hurt, and if you need to make a sub. So all that stuff is very valuable to someone who plays fantasy, especially if you're playing for money. A lot of fantasy leagues have $20 buy-ins, $40 buy-ins, or you're just on an app where you're literally betting against other people while you're playing fantasy, So there can be real monetary value attached to the fantasy experience, and the convenience factor for YouTube TV and the NFL to realize, hey, our fans love this aspect of the game. Being a fantasy manager, I know I do. I'm in 3 leagues right now. How can we make that easier for them, and how can we make that experience better for them? And this really highlights the initiative to me on how to improve the customer experience. People are constantly checking their phones to see scores from around the league and to see how their fantasy teams are doing. Now they don't have to. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fantasy consumer, but I will say that for a big fantasy consumer, no matter what, having access to your data and you're not having to go and switch between platforms, you're watching the game on one, you're watching your stats on the other, you're trying to track it and get excited. Being able to get excited about something and do it on one thing, it's definitely a super, super I would say it's a positive, right? It's a good thing that they're doing. Obviously, improves convenience, and convenience is a big thing that drives our economy, that drives the world today, right? People want things at their fingertips. They want it quickly and they want it easy. And it's definitely going to be an awesome opportunity. And it's definitely a good program for YouTube TV and other networks to put out, right?
For sure. And, it's the first of its kind, which is very cool. But I wanted to ask, do you think this is kind of a test run? Because they only have it compatible with 2 fantasy apps, NFL Fantasy and Yahoo Fantasy. There are a bazillion fantasy apps out there. There's FanDuel, there's DraftKings, there's ESPN Fantasy, there's a bunch of different apps that you can participate in fantasy on. Do you think that it only being compatible with 2 means that it's kind of a test run, and if it fails, that they won't continue to do it?
I think it definitely could be a test run. I think the interesting point is now, obviously, everything does have to do with money. YouTube
Right.
is not going to go and solely put out all of these other things. Both NFL and Yahoo, right? And I don't remember who owns Yahoo nowadays, but I believe it's linked to Google somehow. But realistically, Yahoo is a big partner of Google through a lot of things.
Of
Has
course.
been for a long time, right? So it makes it really easy for YouTube TV, YouTube,
The YouTube entity.
yeah, the YouTube entity, right, to go and pitch this to Yahoo and be like, "Hey, we're doing this. Do you want to hop in on it?" Right?
Yeah.
Bam. But that's them making $100,000, and that's
Right.
giving you a low estimate
Right.
of what this partnership is costing Yahoo, probably. Right.
Yeah.
So
It probably doesn't cost
realistically,
much.
yes, it's a test run, but also for every possible fantasy service to be involved with this,
It's hard.
Dude, it's going
It's
to be
hard.
money. And now here goes the thing. We go back to the streaming services. Every different fantasy platform will be linked to different streaming services because they're all doing the same thing. This is an idea you can patent. And now people are buying the streaming service based off of, one, the games they can access, two, their fantasy being linked to the streaming service.
Oh my
And the money
God.
goes round.
I
Right?
didn't even think of that.
So realistically,
That's an insane scenario.
this is a one industry-changing application.
Wow.
Right? Absolutely industry-changing application in terms of sports viewership and football viewership, because there's not just fantasy for football, even though it's the biggest. There's fantasy for hockey, fantasy for basketball, fantasy
Baseball.
for soccer, fantasy for baseball,
Like every major sport you can
fantasy
think of.
for every
Oh
top
my-
5, top 7 sport that you can think of.
Did we just start a revolution?
I don't know if we started the revolution, but
Or
we may have
did
just
they-
written Billy Joel.
They started it. We're talking about it. Whatever.
because we didn't start the fire, but they sure did, and we just wrote a song about it.
Yeah,
And
you
boy,
just,
am I
you, just
here.
you just gave them the idea.
Now,
All right, but okay. How does sponsorship factor into this? That's one thing I wanted to mention, because one reason I thought of that they only linked Yahoo and NFL Fantasy is that it could have to do with competitors of YouTube or the NFL. So,
I
for
agree.
example, like fantasy apps that aren't NFL sponsors or that don't give the NFL ad revenue.
absolutely. And those would definitely get, in some way, blackwatched or red flagged in a way that they don't have access to this service in order to go and try to push them out of the business.
Right.
Because obviously the NFL doesn't want people capitalizing on their product. Even though, like, the NFL sees that revenue, they would rather
Right.
have somebody who is linked to their organization be the benefiter of that revenue.
Right, of course, to keep the sponsors happy and
Correct.
that sort of stuff.
Well, one, keep the sponsors happy, but two, to be able to go and say, well, our partnership is with this person.
Yeah, our partnership is
It's-
growing too.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. But do you think that they could expand the number of fantasy apps that they connect to this? Like, not only will it be compatible with NFL Fantasy and Yahoo, but also, with DraftKings, with FanDuel, with ESPN. Because I know those are three of the biggest ones.
Absolutely.
Fliff is another sports betting app. Maybe not necessarily. I don't know if they do fantasy. I don't think so. That's more of a betting app. But I wonder if the next step beyond fantasy is, can we connect it to betting apps too, so you can have a box on the side to see how the lines are changing in game and see my parlay is gonna hit, or the odds are changing on this bet. I'm gonna take this bet instead of this one that I was going to take. You know what I mean? I wonder if that's the next step beyond fantasy, is having that physically on screen.
And I think it would be a very easy thing to do. And I agree. I think that's something that will happen, and can definitely happen, especially with just the strength of betting in our sport.
They definitely
our
already have the
sport.
technology to do that, and they're partnered with multiple sports betting companies already.
Correct. The question is, would that be ethical? Because then you're really, really promoting sports betting. It's
Right,
the same
and-
question with putting it on fantasy, putting fantasy on it, because
And
again,
we've gone in depth about sports betting with the NCAA and stuff before.
correct. So it
Yeah.
just is really dependent on those things. But holy moly, realistically, this is a big money circle. The money's going to keep moving, and it's going to continue to get more expensive for the consumer. And maybe this new opportunity for sponsorships and partnerships and new revenue generation for the streaming services will help the prices go down for the NFL tickets. But
NFL Sunday
realistically-
Ticket, you mean?
yes, but I'm meaning NFL streaming services in general, because we have
Yeah, no, I know.
Um,
It was just that you said NFL tickets, and I didn't.
I'm
want to
not meaning
think
like game tickets. I'm meaning
physical
like
tickets. Yeah,
access to the streaming services,
Right,
as in
okay.
the Sunday Ticket, etc. Like the Thursday. I don't know what is Thursday night still on.
Thursday night's on Amazon.
Prime,
Yeah,
right? So I don't know the Thursday night ticket. You get what I mean?
yeah,
Speaking a bit metaphorically, as in that, not a physical ticket, yes, but effectively, right? Will that price drop based on this new involvement and this new revenue generation?
doubt it,
I doubt it, because
they know people are already willing to pay the price that they paid before.
exactly. And even though they're losing that consumer that we might have identified in foreign countries and even in our own nation, right? Somebody like me who doesn't watch a lot of football is not going to pay for a streaming service to go and consume more of said sport.
Right.
Nor do I have any interest in really watching a game in general. So maybe you're not going to get me, even if I did have an interest in watching an Atlanta Falcons game, right? Being a Falcons fan as a kid, but like,
You're a Falcons fan?
yes, dude, I love me some Matt Ryan. Come on, somebody, all right? I love me
Oh,
some
you
Matt
know
Ryan.
exactly what I'm going to say right now, right?
No, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up.
I don't
Don't,
have to.
don't,
I don't
don't,
have to.
no, don't do it.
I don't
Don't.
have to. I don't have to. You know what
We
I'm
all
going
we all know what he means. The 28-3, and then it goes to shit. All right.
to say. Julian Edelman, man. Julian Edelman.
It's the greatest comeback in the history of sports, and it was an awesome game. And I was heartbroken as a kid, and I have never watched football since.
Can I tell a little story?
Yes, go for it.
So my friends and I were sitting in the room I'm in right now, actually watching that game, and we were like sitting on top of a table, all on our phones. It was like the first year we got phones, so
Okay.
we were all on our phones.
I was like, dude, we were young. Like,
No, I know. We all had like burner phones, like that type of stuff. And one of the dads of my friends comes in and he's like, "What are you guys doing? Watch the Super Bowl." Like this doesn't, because the Patriots were in the Super Bowl like almost every year, so we were just like, "Oh yeah, this is normal," you know. But then when the game got like so out of hand, we were like, "Okay, then there's no point of watching." And then as it started, we were like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" And then it finally happened,
and the
and
crowd goes wild.
I vividly remember being, I think I was 11. This was 2015 or 16, right?
Yeah.
I vividly remember all of my friends sprinting out my door, taking off our shirts, whipping them around, and running down my neighborhood around the cul-de-sac and all the way back. Full sprint.
Well, I'm glad my pain created a lifelong memory for you.
Oh, yeah, I'll remember
That's
it
a
forever.
beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, where were we before that?
I think we were just concluding. But somebody like me who is not a football consumer, but follows a team, quite likes the team, follows a certain player per se, because they like them on social media or they think what they do is cool, is not going to go and watch an NFL game because the price to access it,
Right.
via viewership, is too expensive.
So
And
do you think we're at the point where they're gonna lose consumers because they've priced consumers out of the market, or do you think we haven't reached that point yet and it's gonna get worse?
Well, I think there's a reason that we are often talking about viewership numbers of sporting events being down from years past. And I think especially the price to access said sporting events via viewership being increasing has a big, large role to play in that.
Do you think it's intentional that they're pricing consumers out of the market, like targeting richer fans, or do you think that it's kind of an unintended consequence of just creating more media deals?
I think it's an unintended consequence of creating more media deals, but also an industry that is seeking to make more money as our economy continues to do what our economy does.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into too much politics there.
Yeah, but you cannot do that at the cost of pricing out your base fans or your fans that are a little less wealthy, you know. So I really hope that's not where the NFL is going. I don't think they are, but I really hope if it gets to the point where it's too many streaming services that there will be some pushback and that the market will kind of come back to a normal place where it's on a few, but not too spread out.
Absolutely. Realistically, right? Thinking about it in the terms of the concept. If I was someone who is in charge of this, who is running this business, I would absolutely say, holy moly, I'm going to make a butt ton of revenue. We're not dropping the prices. We have new sponsorship opportunities. Let's push for those sponsorships and create new business opportunities.
It's all about growth.
I know that's what I would do. And maybe I'm a hopeless money grabber.
No, as would I. You know, like we're saying some of the stuff, acting like if I wasn't in the same position, I wouldn't do the same thing. No, it's a business. You know, they're constantly looking to grow their revenue, even though they're never going to be content with where they are. You know, they're the best, or they're the most revenue generating league in America, but you can't let that be satisfactory. You constantly have to be looking as a business, how can we improve? How can we get better? How can we make the fan experience better? How can we make more money? You know, and it's all related. But from this Fantasy View feature, do you think this will add more subscribers, more viewers, or do you think it will take away based on I don't think it'll take away at all because more people will want to subscribe to YouTube TV now, in my opinion, than before, based on having these other options. What do you think?
Difficult. I think it's a cool feature, but it realistically is just a little niche and a very small thing. Obviously, the fantasy
I think it's
football
less
thing.
niche than you think.
No. I know fantasy football is huge and massive, but I have this device and I have that device, and I've used this device and that device. There's a TV in front of me for concept. For the last 10 years of me enjoying fantasy football, I don't really care to change. And I think that's going to be a big issue for this in terms of it being a revenue generator for YouTube TV or for the YouTube Sunday ticket, right?
Right.
The reality is, do I think YouTube Sunday ticket subscribers are going to use it and then brag to their friends about it? Absolutely. Do I think that's what's going to drive the revenue? Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's funny. I just finished listening to Jesse Cole, the owner of the Bananas, his audiobook, and he talked a lot about how word of mouth among fans can be very, very powerful. And if you create the best fan experience possible, then those people that had that experience will go and tell other people who then also become fans for you. You know what I mean? Which then leads to more revenue. But the focus has to be on the experience first before you can focus on the revenue. I loved that audiobook, by the way, but it relates to this because they can focus on saying, okay, how do we make the fantasy experience relate to watching the physical game? We've done it now. Okay, if people enjoy this, they're going to go tell their friends about it. If they tell their friends about it, their friends are going to want to sign up for this, right? Point A to point B, better experience, more money. You know what I'm saying? So it's very much a cause and effect that starts with thinking about how, as a business, how can we improve the customer experience to a point where it's the best optimal version of our product.
Well said. Well said. And I think the word of mouth is the massive piece of it here. We will see what happens realistically. But well said. A good quote. I like the quote.
Yeah. And like I just said, it's just another example of the NFL really thinking about their user experience and how to not stay stagnant, even though they're the top revenue generating league in America. They're constantly innovating, and basically, huge shout out to the NFL. That was what the whole episode was basically about. And I'm also like super excited to film. I get to start this week.
That's exciting.
I know. I've never filmed football at all, and I don't know how it's going to go. I've been watching a few videos on tactics on what I should be focusing on, but I'm going to have to adjust on the fly because they use Sony cameras at UMass for the athletic department. I've never used a Sony camera before at all, so we'll have to see how that goes. So I'm moving in on Thursday. The first football game is on Saturday morning. So I'm jumping right in the fire.
Come in for preseason. Come on.
But I love it though because it's going to be such a steep learning curve for me that I'm going to learn so much because I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that will really diversify my skill set because I can say, okay, I had to go through this experience being thrown into the fire like that with basically no previous experience filming football. Yeah, obviously I've filmed a bunch of other sports, but St. Joe's, we didn't have a football team. So I didn't get to do that. This is really cool. And it's honestly one of the reasons that I transferred to UMass is, okay, now I'm going to get to film Division I sports and a lot more variety of sports, and that's going to build my experience beyond, what I can think of right now. So super excited for that and really excited to move into school in 2 days. As always, thank you guys for listening and go follow us on social and keep viewing our stuff. Do you know what our highest clip is up to now?
Oh,
it's 40,000. It hit 40,000 yesterday.
That's actually sick.
I know. It's absolutely insane.
Hey,
I'm not.
Little pat on the back.
I know. So I'm not going to post about it yet, but if we hit 50K, I'm totally posting it, at least on my story. As always, thank you guys for the support and have a great week. We'll see you soon. I'll be on campus next time.
Yeah.